Hello, my name is Kemi Mary Jones. Today we are going to discuss about classes and objects. So, what is the definition of a class? A class is defined as a template or blueprint from which objects are created, and a class can be a logical entity, and a class does not take up any memory. It is made up of a group of variables of different types or a group of methods. A class can be a super or parent class or a sub or child class. So the child class is nested inside the parent class. So a subclass can only have one parent, and a class is created with the keyword new. The constructor of a class has the same name as the class. So we want to discuss about the syntax of a class. Here we have an example of a class called dog. And for you to create a class, you have to have an access modifier, which may be public or private. So for a class to be accessible by other classes or by the main method, your class access modifier has to be public. Okay, so here we have a public class access modifier, and we have the keyword of class. We need that keyword to create or for the um, compiler to understand that this is a class file. As well, we have to create a class with a unique name. Here we have a class name called dog. Okay, so a class has different entity inside its structure. So the first thing you see inside a class is the fields, also known as data members or instant variables. Fields are created inside a class but outside the method inside the same class. And fields don't get memory while or during compile time. They only get allocated memory when the code is running or the object is instantiated. Inside the class, you have constructors. So the constructors are what is used to initialize a new class object, and also the constructor carries the same name as the class itself. The constructor is useful in the sense that it helps to save time when you are compiling the code during runtime. Inside the class, you can have one or more methods doing or doing certain functionalities. So the method is exposed to the behavior of an object, and the method inside the class is similar to a function because you can call it anywhere in the class. Um, the advantage of method is that it makes the code reusable and also optimize codes in classes. A class contains blocks of code, a body. So the body of a class is where the source code, the text area, where the source code is contained in the class, and is surrounded with curly braces. So a class can either be a nested class, meaning a class implementing another class or inheriting from another class or containing another class or interface. So a class implementing another class contains the word implement before the name of the class that the class is inheriting from or the interface name, which a class can have more than one or more interfaces, but they are separated with a comma. So here we have structure of a class. Like I said before, when you create a class, the first thing you see in the class is the field. which is known as the instance variable of the class. They can be private. If the field is private, it's only seen by the class itself, which is a good practice at some point. And it can also be public if you want the fields to be accessed globally. So we have constructors. Like I said before, the constructor carries the same name as the class and also is used to initialize the objects of the class. So we have the method. Here we have one or two methods. So this is a class where we create the class itself, and we also call the main method inside the class. You must understand that the main method is actually your entrance or your entry point, which the code or the compiler runs during runtime. So here is the main method. We are printing out the name of dogs and um, the breed and the color of the dog. Right, so we have another one here, another example where which we are going to look into. But before then, we want to understand the definition of an object. An object can be defined as an entity that has a state and a behavior, and it can either be a logical or a real-world entity. So an object is most often a real world entity where you can call an object of an animal, of human, and so forth. But also it can be a logical entity depending on the type of software or the app you're creating and what the use is going to be. So an object is a runtime entity, meaning it only gets allocated memory during runtime, and also it can be defined by its what state, behavior, and identity. So an object is an instance of a class. We have some characteristics of an object. The characteristics of an object include the state. The state is the value of the object, whereas the behavior of the object has to do with the functionality. And the identity of the object is the unique name or ID in which the object interacts with other objects, as well as this same unique ID is used by the JVM Java Virtual Machine to identify the object. So here we are going to see how an object is created inside a class. So we'll see that this container is our class person, okay, and this second container is going to be our object. So the object is most often created inside the class, and therefore the object carries a unique name, which is identity. So every person, every human has a name here. So that's our identity, and every human or every person have a gender, age, and height. So which is what the state or the attribute of the object. And when you look at it, everybody sleeps, eats, and work, and so forth, which is the behavior of the object. So that is how we are going to understand and get to recognize objects in a class. So an object can be initialized in many ways: by reference, by method, and by constructor. So when you want to create an object in, let's say we are using Java as a case study, we use the keyword new, and also we use a new instance method, and we can use the method of deserialization, and we can use the clone method as well as the factory method. So what is an anonymous object? An anonymous object is a nameless object which has no reference. Okay, as the name describes. So it has no reference, and it's also can be used at any time or at the time of creation of the object only. So here we are going to look at some examples, real examples on how to create a class and we instantiate objects using Java. So here is an example of creating a class and instantiating an object, as well as we are including the main method inside the class we are creating. So we have our folder example classes. So where we create our new class, which is a class of students. And so first thing, we have our access modifier and the keyword class, then the name of the class, which is students. So you must understand the name of your class must be the same thing as your file name if you are writing in Java. So for the compiler to know that this is a student class. So here we are creating our field or data member, and we are creating our data member and the variable which we call instance variable. So we know that every student have a name which is going to be a string, and so I'm just trying to add some comments for you to know what we are actually doing at the moment. So this is called an instance variable. Then, so every student have a name and every student will have an ID. Okay, and every student will have a last name. So we are creating a student with, we are creating a class student with a name, last name, sorry, and age. So as we look at this variables we are creating, we can see we have different data types. We have strings, and we have, in this example, we have an int. So then we create our constructor. Remember I said the constructor carries the same name as the class, because there we are initializing the class object. So the next thing is we created a method to print out the name, the last name, and the age and address of the student. And while we call our main method to run and compile the code, after compiling we see that each student's name, last name, and address is printed out. So we are creating here a class with and instantiating an object with a main method wrapped inside another class outside of that class. Okay, so here, like we did the other time, we create our class, but here we are creating a class of cars, and we are instantiating our instance variable, as well as we are giving it a make, because every car has a make. It can either be a Honda, it can either be a Kia, or any kind of make. We have a lot of car make and all the stuff. So we have given this car a model, and we have int here the year with the car was made, and we have the price of the car and the color of the car. So in this example, we can see we have different types of instance variable, the strings, int, and the double. So we create our constructor, like I said, has the same name as the class itself, and we create a method to print the information of the car. So here now, instead of creating the main class inside this car class, we are creating another file where we can print, or where we can call our main class. So this is the concept of this example here. So we create another class, car info, and we decide to create our main class here. Remember, our main class is the entry point where our code runs. So we create some information to run on like 10 different cars, and we ask it to print for us. So therefore, when you run this code, you see that you have your car and different types of name, the make, the year, and everything printed out for us to see. So this is the example of how to create a class and instantiate an object. Let's summarize on everything we've learned. So what is the difference between a class and an object? So you must remember your class is the template or blueprint from which objects are created, and the object is an instance of a class. A class is created using the keyword class in Java, and an object is a real world entity, most often, like car, person, animal, things you can actually see and touch. And also, a class is a group or set of similar objects, meaning a class enclose a group or set of similar objects, whereby our object is created by using the new keyword. Like for example, we have animal dog equals to new animal. So where you call the new is when you are creating the object itself, and you are giving it a memory space, okay, inside the heap memory. It is also known that a class is a logical entity most often, and the object is a physical entity, meaning something you can feel, see, or touch. A class can only be declared once, but your object can be declared or created multiple times depending on your need and requirement at the moment. And a class does not allocate memory when it is created, while object allocates memory when it is created, because at the end of the day, when you run your code, your object is going to run. And remember, we say object is a runtime entity. So a class can only be defined by using the keyword class, for example in Java. And don't forget that, it's very important. And in object, um, it can be created in many different ways, like using new keyword, clone method, and so forth. So I hope you understand the concept of class and object now. Thank you very much. I am Kemi Mary Jones.